Tragedy has struck the Bathinda Military Station in Punjab. It happened early this morning. 4 Jawans were shot dead in their sleep at around 4:30 a.m. The assailants are yet to be identified and captured, but a joint investigation is currently underway between the army and the Punjab police. They are trying to figure out how this attack unfolded and who the 2 men are who opened fire at an RT mess in Bathinda. Now, since morning, there has been a lot of speculation, a lot of fake reports about what happened in Bathinda. The armies also cautioned the media against false reporting. So, on the show, let me tell you what the facts of this incident are. This is what we know so far. 2 men were involved in this attack. The FIR filed by the army says that both men were wearing white kurta pajamas. Their faces were covered with a cloth. One of the attackers carried an insas rifle, while the other carried an axe. The rifle that was being used for the shootout had gone missing from one of the units, in fact, from this very unit, around 2 days ago, along with 28 rounds of cartridges. A search party has now found this insas rifle, which seems had been dumped after the attack. So that has been recovered. What the FIR very clearly is also saying is that this rifle was indeed the one that had been stolen from this very RT unit 2 days ago. Question is, who stole it? The Punjab police had earlier ruled out the possibility of a terror attack. But Punjab Minister Anmol Gagan Maan hinted at a possible internal squabble. The army, on its part, says an investigation is underway. It has also reiterated multiple times that nobody has been detained or apprehended so far. It's been 16 hours, no one has been arrested. Now, the whole incident raises multiple questions. Like, why are our military establishments so poorly guarded? And why is it taking more than 16 hours to apprehend 2 men who murdered our Jawans in cold blood? Let me go straight across to Gurpreet, my colleague, who's right now reporting from outside the Bathinda Military Station. He's been there since morning. Gurpreet, are you picking up anything new? We have the FIR in front of us. The FIR has been filed by the RT unit. It is telling us that there were 2 men in white kurta pajamas with their faces covered with cloth who entered, opened fire at the mess, which is where the 4 men died, the 4 army Jawans died. Are we picking up anything at all on the identity of who these men could be?
Well, that is part of investigation. What we are picking at this point of time, that is very clear that weapon has already been recovered by the joint team, which is continuing that operation. We have seen very clearly SPD, he has clarified 19 cartridges had been recovered from there. Now the weapon has already been recovered from that place during the search operation, which is being conducted by the joint team of Punjab Police as well as the army officers. What we can understand from the sources there, they say it seems that it takes a lot of research in this thing, and forensic team should be called there to get all the vital clues from there. As of now, what we can understand from the sources, they are saying that there is no outsider, but the way they kurta pajama and they had covered their face, they were wearing the kurta pajama and covering the face. That is the initial investigation, that is the important investigation. The details which we have already got from the FIR, it indicates that it takes a lot of time. Now the question which is with the Punjab police as well as the army officer, they are conducting multiple search, multiple questioning are being done by the joint team so that they will be able to get more leads. So as of now, the weapon has been recovered from there. So now they are exploring the other leads for investigating further this case.
Okay, Gurpreet, we'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much. I'm going straight across to Lieutenant General D S Hooda, who is joining us on the broadcast. General Hooda, thank you very much. Vikram Jit Singh is a defense expert. He joins us as well. General Hooda, I'm coming to you first. This is turning out to be a curious case. I've just spoken to the Army General Hooda, and apart from the information that we now have in the public domain, what the Army is also confirming to us is that every soldier and officer in this particular RT unit where the firing happened and where 4 Jawans are dead, everyone is accounted for. So does it still look like a case of fratricide to you?
Share to me, it does, because for the very reason that, the weapon has gone missing from the same area and from the same unit a couple of days ago. So obviously, it's something that has been planned in advance by somebody. And then the firing has happened in the same unit with the same weapon that has been recovered. I don't see, frankly, I mean, if you look at, we don't know all the details. And so, sometimes we should sort of hold our horses. But on the face of it, it looks like, something that could be possibly internal. I don't see an outside element in this. I mean, how could the outsider come in, take a weapon, go away, and then come back in and, do something 2 days later? Doesn't really sound very logical to me.
But General Hooda, that's very clear that since morning, the Punjab police has been going out on a limb saying this is not a terror strike. This is not a terror attack. In fact, there are ministers from the Punjab government who have come out and said, ये army का internal मामला है, कोई लड़ाई झगड़े का मामला है. There's a specific reason why I asked you this question. Look, what do we understand of fratricide? I mean, you of course have many years of experience in the Indian Army, but fratricide is usually one guy losing his cool, losing his mental balance, taking a service weapon and opening fire at his colleagues. Usually the angst is over leaves, right? In this case, if every person in the unit is accounted for, it clearly was someone who was not from this RT unit who stole the weapon and opened fire. Then how does this become a case of fratricide? And we may be ruling out a terror angle. We may be saying that this is not a terror strike. But question is then, who are these two men? What was their motive if this is not a terror strike?
Sure, I honestly can't give you that answer as to who these men are and what was it all about. Let it be investigated. I think they found the weapon. So, the forensics will in some ways reveal what it was and how it happened. It's not like a typical fratricide. You mentioned that, somebody goes like, loses his cool at that minute, opens fire with his colleagues and does something. This is a much more poorly planned kind of an operation. And so whether, as you're saying, it's from within the unit or it's from outside, I mean, what to me sort of, and why I'm saying it's probably an internal thing, possibly is, if it had to be somebody from outside, why would he come steal a weapon from that unit, then go out and then come back and, do the same thing on that unit? Could well have been, a weapon that he could have got from elsewhere, which is why I think it points to something internal. But sure, let's wait. Let's see. I'm sure it's not, as you said, it's not a normal sort of fratricide case. So let's wait and see. Let the investigation go on for some time, and then we will get the answer. On this, I'm quite convinced we will get the answers.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain we will get the answers. It may be too early. All of us are talking about the fact, Vikram Jit, come in here. We're talking about the fact that, the firing happens at 4:35 in the morning. It's 8:12 p.m. And the two men who opened fire inside a military cantonment are still missing. They have still not been apprehended. What do you make of that? And what do you make of the entire sequence of events as we have seen unfold since morning, Vikram Jit?
Shreya, I think the FIR is very revelatory. It's in Punjabi, so I think most people haven't read it. The FIR mentions that the rifle was stolen on April 9th, 3 days back almost. It also mentions that, the guards for the officers' mess were without weapons. So when this firing occurred, the 4 men sleeping on 2 different floors were shot one after the other, and they couldn't do anything about it. The guard on duty, Gunner Desai Mohan, who was eyewitness, He heard the firing, saw the two men come out of the barracks, and he could do nothing about it because he had no weapon. So I think the first point to note is that, despite the rifle being stolen, the army really didn't take any action to safeguard a possibility like this. Point number two, they did not lodge a formal complaint with the Bathinda police because the weapon could have gone outside the police, the military station, and put public lives at risk. Thirdly, the killers knew exactly what the army's, the layout and the duty roster was. Firstly, they stole the weapon, the rifle, from Lance Naik Harish, who was issued the weapon number Butt 77 on 31st March. They stole it on 9th April. Then they knew the guards don't have any weapons because those were the orders. Then they knew the duty roster. Who would be sleeping at what time? Then they come in kurta pajamas with not only faces covered, but with the head also covered. Right? The eyewitness guard, Gunner Desai Mohan, describes them as men of medium height and I think stocky build. So I think there has been some, I suspect, and I think the Court of Inquiry should take this issue head on as to what actions the commanding officer of the unit and the station commander initiated after the theft of the weapon was reported to them. You see, very interestingly, the army statement from headquarters Western Command says reportedly missing weapon. Now, this is not missing. You can't have a weapon, which is a very serious thing, with 28 rounds missing. It has to be stolen, or there has to be an unauthorized withdrawal of the weapon by someone. So I think they have not really taken the actions which were needed after this weapon, was stolen on April 9th. That was on Sunday.
Okay. General Hooda, would you say then that was a fatal lapse? That had the unit managed to retrace the rifle, probably what happened in the wee hours of this morning in Bathinda wouldn't have happened? Would you say it's a lapse? At least accept that in that one place there was a lapse?
There was absolutely a lapse. There is a lapse definitely because for 3 days these men had the weapon and they were not traced. And then they appear in the same unit and kill 4 men and walk away and still not traced 16 hours or whatever after the incident.
General Hooda, would you accept that this was a lapse? It was a big mistake on the part of the unit not to be a little more serious about tracing this weapon?
So, Shreya, obviously there's a lapse. I mean, if there wasn't a lapse, then you wouldn't have had, the strategy of 4 soldiers killed. So there is a lapse. And we can, now in hindsight, we can find, 101 reasons and 101 lapses that were there. As I'm saying, yes, there must have been some flaws. There must have been some shortfalls, because of which you have these 4 soldiers who lost their lives. Otherwise, they wouldn't have. Maybe the Court of Inquiry will bring all this out, will show what happened, how it happened. As I said, at this stage, just criticizing and being critical is, I'm not sure it's going to prove anything. Let the inquiry be done. Let people have a look at how it happened. Let me tell you, it's not as if this incident can be sort of just papered over. It's going to be investigated seriously. That's exactly what's going to happen. And let's just sort of wait and see what happens. I agree with you on the fundamental issue that if there were no lapses, there would have been no loss of lives. So lapses have certainly occurred. And I'm sure the Court of Inquiry will bring these out clearly.
Now, of course, the incident will have to be investigated thoroughly because there are lessons to be learned. There will have to be lessons that need to be learned from what has happened, because the last thing you want is a repeat of what happened early this morning. General Hooda, as someone who has served long years in the Indian Armed Forces, could you tell us what are the most common reasons behind fratricide? As I said, one is leave. always the angst over leave, but what else? And what pushes a soldier or a Jawan to an extent where he will take a service rifle and open fire at his own colleagues?
So, Shreya, let me just tell you, for us in the army, the fundamental sort of article of faith is that soldiers put their lives on line for comrades. They are willing to sacrifice their lives. So, if somebody is taking a life of his comrade, actually a huge, huge setback, for the army and for the military. And so it's taken very, very seriously. Why does it happen, Shreya? I wish we could sort of pinpoint and say this is one single reason why it happens, and then we can find solutions to it. There are multiple reasons. The army is a stressful job. It's a stressful environment in which people operate. There could be issues on the personal front, issues at home, financial issues. There could be leadership lapses, which happens in many cases where leaders are not careful about taking care of their men. And then each individual sort of reacts differently to different situations. Now, somebody will crack and somebody will not. So Shreya, it's really difficult to say that, these are the main reasons why incidents like this happen. As I said, stressful jobs, and what you're seeing today in units is units are operating with 10 to 15% soldiers less in their units, doing the same kind of job. So many, many reasons, I think, behind why a soldier would crack and why he would not. But as I said, really for us in the army, this is something that goes fundamentally against the character of how soldiers operate.
Is this a soldier who has cracked? It could be a civilian as well, Vikram Jit. There are enough and more civilians who live within army cantonments. That's the truth across India. I'm just thinking of a motive here, because this is not a typical case of fratricide, and I know we are going in the realm of complete speculation because the information we have so far is very sketchy. But if every soldier from this particular RT unit is accounted for, and if these two men don't belong to the RT unit where the firing was done, where the firing was opened, who possibly could be angry enough, with a unit to go open fire and kill 4 innocent men? I'm just thinking of the motive. I'm just thinking to myself, there is more to this than meets the eye.
No, Shreya, firstly, it is a murder committed in cold blood. It's a premeditated murder, well thought out, because the murders occur 3 days after the weapon is stolen, right? So obviously, the men have had time to think about it, and they've decided on that course of action and gone ahead with it. It's not that the man has picked up a rifle and a fit of blind rage, he has turned it on his comrades. So that's point one. Point two, the artillery unit says it's accounted for all its men. Yes, truly, yes. Now, how did these men steal that rifle in the first place? There must be somebody inside who's been able to get that rifle either for them or it is himself who's done it. So they knew the layout exactly. They knew that the guards don't have weapons at night when they do the duty roster to guard the officers' mess. You see, these guys went to the first floor, shot 2 men, went to the second floor, shot another 2 men. The guard on duty sees them coming out after the firing, he's heard the firing, and nobody can do anything about it. Then they walk off into the jungle to the left of the barracks. So there is no way that these murders don't have an inside hand or an insight into the way this unit was laid out or it functioned. And let me tell you that in the army, many times the Jawans are not given weapons precisely because of the fear of fratricide. Unfortunately, I think we don't really take into account what happens. For example, in Kupwara, just after the Kargil war, we had a huge attack on the 4 Rashtriya Rifles. And unfortunately, the men were without weapons because they had all been put into the armory at night for fear of fratricide. So 6 boys died, including an army captain. The very next day, the commanding officer of the unit, 4RR, was shot by his own men from the Armored Corps detachment who were on road opening parties outside his headquarters in Kupwara. So I think this thing has to be looked at very deeply as to how these incidents are occurring and when we need to take away weapons from our Jawans on guard duties.
Okay. Okay. You know, again, I don't want to enter into the realm of speculation because we'll just stick with the information that is coming to us from the army, and the information is out there. General Hooda has spoken about it. Vikram Jit has spoken about it. So we'll end the discussion here. General Hooda, thank you very much for your time and perspective. Vikram Jit, thank you very much, and thank you very much for, you know, detailing. Do you want to say something, General Hooda? Go ahead, please. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
You know, on this point about, and I think it shouldn't be left like this, that soldiers are not issued weapons for guard duties because of fear of fratricide. I think, you know, we are making a very, very sweeping statement here. It doesn't happen like that, that we are scared of our own Jawans and therefore they are not being given weapons. In peace stations, I know every guard is not issued a weapon. Maybe in this case, after a weapon was stolen, they could have been, but you don't arm hundreds of guards in civilian areas. You give it to selective people. I mean, that's the procedure. So maybe on the gate, maybe at the quarter guard where the weapons are kept. It's not as if every guard is armed with a weapon in a peace station. And I think the statement that the army fears fratricide and therefore they don't give weapons to the guards, I think is a bit of a sweeping statement. So I'll just end there. Otherwise, I agree with what Vikram has been saying, but I mean, this is a very largely sweeping statement.
Okay, we'll end the discussion then. DS Hooda, General DS Hooda, thank you very much for joining us. Vikramjit, good to have you on the show as well. As we said, this is a live situation. There are 2 men who opened fire this morning inside Bathinda Cant, killing 4 men. They are still missing. It's been 16 hours. Right now, as we speak, the process of accounting for every man inside the Bathinda station, every person who is serving their officer, Jawan, their families as well, that process should be about getting over because it's already 16 hours to see who it possibly could be who stole the weapon, then comes back 2 days later to the RT unit, opens fire and kills 4 of our Jawans. It's a story that is live. It's a story that is still developing. We don't have all details to it. We'll keep you updated right here on Mirror Now on the story as it develops in Bathinda. For the moment, I'm slipping into a quick break on the show. There's more coming up on the other side. Do stay with us.